the tests and the exercises that I can give you guys and have enough time. I mean, there's only 5 of you, so that's not too bad. We should be able to get through it pretty quickly. So just to give you an idea as to who I am, as I said, my name's Dan. I am a physical therapist assistant at Family Physical Therapy Services. We have an office in Chichester and an office in Bedford. So depending on where you live, what works better for you, if you need anything. And I have over 10 years in the strength and conditioning world too. So I was a personal trainer first, and then sort of made my move into physical therapy. And for me, the whole running thing kind of came along. I've never been a good runner, so speed, distance really wasn't something that I don't think I was built for, but I still wanted to be able to at least do some of it and be okay at it. And someone handed me the book Born to Run. If you've read it, it was awesome, and kind of blew my mind. And I went like, all right, well, there's more options out here than I think. And I started making a transition from somebody with plantar fasciitis, custom orthotic, motion control shoe, flat feet kind of thing, all the way down to running 5K in a Converse Chuck Taylor. So essentially full-blown minimal, no more plantar fasciitis. I didn't know why it worked, I just knew it worked. And I had a couple of thoughts about it, and then it kind of went away, and I've just kind of stayed that way for a while, and I've started to figure it out. So that's me, and that's kind of what I, how I got into this. And then we sort of progressed with it, and there's just more information being bombarded. I feel like right now, running shoes, running technique, it's been around for a while, and then I started looking into it. It's almost like that car that you just bought one, and then all of a sudden you see it on the road every single day. You're like, I haven't seen this car ever before. Now I feel like I'm just like running this, running that, minimal shoe that, maximal shoe this, and I'm like, oh my god, my mind's blown, and it's a lot to sift through. Right? Yeah, it's a ton to sift through. So, just to give you an idea, I'm going to start out with discussing kind of what I think the role of a shoe should be. And I broke it down into 4 specific kind of buckets, right? So, first off, I look at shoes as tools, okay? Running to me is a sport with technique just like anything else. And I liken it kind of to, I spend a lot more time and I'm a lot better at lifting weights than I am at running. And when somebody comes into the gym to see me as a personal trainer, I wouldn't look at them and say, okay, today we're going to squat. We're going to put you on a 4-week squatting program. In 4 weeks, you're going to squat 300 pounds. But don't worry, because I have a weightlifting belt. And if you pick the right weightlifting belt, you're going to be perfectly safe. 4 weeks down the line, I throw 300 pounds on their back, put a weightlifting belt on. They blow their back out, and squatting is now dangerous. And I feel like running sort of gets that. Like, okay, I'm going to go run. I'm going to go to the store, I'm going to buy the perfect shoe. All my problems are going to disappear, and I'm going out for 5K or 4 months to a marathon or whatever it is. Now I've got plantar fasciitis, I've got knee pain, I've got this, that. I go to my doctor, and my doctor says, no, running's bad, you must stop. And I'm like, no, that's not going to work. So, the shoe needs to fit what you're looking to do. You may need multiple shoes depending on kind of training versus competing and those kinds of things. And the other issue when it comes to strength in general is that, when we take our foot and we just put it into a shoe which becomes a brace, and we're not strengthening ourselves and strengthening our feet, we're going to fatigue. And the way the human body works, unfortunately, is it sort of moves in 2 directions, forward or backward. Maintenance is very difficult. So we're either getting stronger or getting weaker. And so when we brace ourselves, so if I squat all the time with my weight belt on, my abs will never get stronger.
Is that okay?
But if I squat from time to time without it,
Any other colors?
and then I add it in,
Color I have
I'm
in
going to
that
see progression.
style.
Okay.
And
We have
I
one
look
that's a little
at
longer.
running
Yeah.
plus matching the right shoe to where you
I will
are,
take the
plus
green
progression,
one,
as being a way to
I'll take
stay
one, yeah.
safe.
Great. Thank you.
So,
You want 4 of these?
taking a look at sort of
Those
the
are all
older
from-
guard when it came to shoes. I mean, I look at this wall and I just see
Yeah,
like,
it's got
holy cow.
some cushion right
There is every option here. It used to be this very 3 buckets,
guys
right?
have so many
You're either an overpronator,
color-wise.
you need a motion control shoe, you're neutral, you need a little cushion, or you're a high arch, and you need to stabilize that. That was it. We took everybody, put them in there. And then for me, Born to Run came around, and all of a sudden it was this minimal shoes, and now we've gone from minimal shoes over here, the Vibram 5 Fingers, we had the Hoka, we had Shape Up, the rocker bottom shoe, You can wear these and look like Kim Kardashian. Yeah, right. You're saying that your butt didn't look like Kim Kardashian.
Success story, right?
Right. I mean, Wayne Gretzky was hawking them, so was Joe Montana. Yeah. That upset me. I could live with Kim. I couldn't live with Joe and Wayne.
Yeah, right.
So,
Yeah.
so that's kind of where we go. We've gone we're just all over the spectrum. And what that says to me is because there's so many options out there, there's no right option. There's not necessarily a wrong option. And we're constantly kind of moving through, and we may move forward, we may move backwards, but we're constantly picking what works for us for where we are today. So taking a look again, going back to my 4 buckets of shoes. Very simple. The first thing a shoe does is simply protect your feet. If you guys are going to go outside right now, really cold, good luck to you. I'm not coming.
You're not coming?
No.
Aww.
It's a little cold for my taste. It was too cold for me to get up and drive to an indoor gym today. But essentially, protect your feet, right? We run on pavement, most of us, or in the trails. So, option A is maybe you want to go home and take a bike tire tube, slit it down the middle, wrap it around your feet. That would be reasonable protection. Or option B is pick them out in a running shoe and look a little bit more normal. So that's kind of bucket number 1. Bucket number 2 is really to protect you during an injury. Okay? And we look at sort of where you are and where you're going. So you may be in one shoe because of where you are, and you may be headed to the next one. So I look at it in the physical therapy world as somebody's in a massive car accident. They come in, they don't have use of their legs, they're in a wheelchair. We don't look at them and say, well, we're going to get a wheelchair for you that fits right, and this is your wheelchair for life. We say to them, you're going to go from a wheelchair, you're going to get stronger, you're going to go on a walker. After your walker, you're going to go to a cane, and after a cane, you're going to be able to walk by yourself. And I look at shoes in that same way, right? Kind of constantly working to get your body stronger so that you need less shoe. You always need a shoe, but how much of it and which one you need is the question. And it could be that that person, they had an injury, a spinal cord, and the farthest they got was a cane. And so that's okay. So that cane is there forever. So maybe you're never going to be 0 drop with absolutely 0 cushion, most minimal shoe on the market, but maybe 3 to 4 drop is where you sort of end up, what your body allows. And we're going to kind of figure that out and constantly play with it. Another role of shoe is really structural deformities. If you're born a certain way and we can't make changes, maybe you just have a really high arch. Maybe you have heel spurs or bunions or things like that that just aren't going to go away. And so we're going to pick a shoe that's going to help out with that. And then the final piece of the puzzle, and I think this speaks, I would guess that this speaks to a lot of people, is we want the shoe to optimize our performance. So we don't want to just run injury-free. We want to run the best that we possibly can. So the one thing that when the Vibram 5 Finger and the really minimal movement came around didn't tell us is that, well, yeah, you can do that, but you're actually losing about 3 to 4% of your performance if you're not getting some stability. So back to my weight belt, right? On competition day, I train without it all the time. But on competition day, I wrap up and I can add 10% to my squat because I've got a little bit of stability. I'm not going to use it all the time. And this is where we might say, hey, we've got some training shoes, we've got some racing shoes, we've got our trail shoes, whatever, and everything in between. So now that I kind of give you what I think about shoes, the next piece to the puzzle was the big mind blower for me, and we're sort of challenging conventional wisdom here, okay? Which is that the foot can be strengthened. It can get better. This thing, I don't know where it came from. I don't know what happened. Maybe the shoe companies wanted us to believe this. There is no other part of the body that you come into my office and we go, okay, that's not right. Something's wrong with it. Here's a brace. Move on. But yet with the foot, we go like, oh, you've got a flat arch. Here's a custom orthotic. Here's a motion control shoe. You should be repaired. You're on your way. This is you for life. And for me, at 25 years old, when they put me in a custom orthotic and a motion control shoe and my feet still really hurt, I was like, this sucks, I'm stuck. You know, I'm ripping the insoles out of every shoe that I own. I'm trying to fit my custom orthotic into my dress shoe. I bought the wrong pair of shoes, it didn't fit. I'm like, oh, this is terrible. So I went, you know, there's got to be a better way. And there's studies that show, very specific, there was a landmark study done by a man named Brueggemann that showed specifically that we can strengthen the flexor muscles of the foot. Just like you can strengthen your biceps, your triceps, your quads, whatever. So we can actually get better. So you weren't necessarily born with a flat foot. You don't necessarily have a flat foot. You currently may be flat or have less arch, but you can make that better. And that may be a huge change in your gait pattern, in your efficiency, in your speed, and all those kinds of things. But the most, you know, so when it comes to those kinds of things, we really want to understand that if you're going to be transitioning from a more stability, more cushiony shoe into something more minimal that requires more work, our current saying in our clinic is that a minimal shoe requires a maximal body. So the closer you are to minimal, the better your body better be, the more stable, the more strong, more mobile you better be.
I
So
always say, less shoe, more you.
that's it, less shoe, more you. I like that. That's another good one. So, you know, and the way I look at that is, as somebody who's kind of a gear junkie, when I watch the elite athletes in any sport that I'm on, you know, that I'm participating in, I look at their equipment. You know, I watch the Tour de France, I watch a $4,000 carbon fiber bike, I think, well, that must be the best bike on the market. So I probably need that, because I'm going to need that. But I look at runners, and you look at, say, you know, sprinters. You know, Usain Bolt, right, greatest sprinter in the world. He's in virtually nothing on his feet. He's also a genetic freak, and in phenomenal shape. And so I look at that and say, well, if that's the best, then I'm going to work to get as close to that as possible. I don't want to be way down here. So the ultimate goal, of course, is Usain Bolt. I'd like to be there. Probably not going to happen, but we'll try. And for us, what we have decided is that our goal should be to get as close to the ultimate goal as possible by maximizing our mobility, maximizing our strength and stability, and then picking the shoe that matches exactly where we are today, and then seeing how far we can take that towards that ultimate kind of gold standard. All right, with that said, I want to go over the kind of boring biology stuff so that I can kind of get into the tests and the exercises so that we can help, so that I can help you guys transition and progress into something that maybe is going to help you prevent injury, because that's really the goal here, right? Prevent injury, maximize performance. That's that constant push and pull. You know, so if I'm in a little bit less shoe and it's a little bit lighter, my performance is better, but it requires more foot, more me. And today, it also requires crampons. So, I don't know if you guys have those. I haven't seen them on the wall. Take a look at those. So, all right, so real quick, I sort of broke this down into three things. It's what the foot does. It's sort of my three big sort of things the foot does. It's not the only thing the foot does. And of course, when we talk about running, we've got to get into the knee, the hip, and the core. And I mean, we can go all the way up the chain into your thoracic spine and stuff. But we didn't want to have you guys here till midnight. We didn't want anyone sleeping on me, because this stuff can get a little bit boring and rough. So let's look at three things that the foot has to do, okay? First off, most of us have heard of this one. Your foot must pronate and supinate through your gait cycle, okay? So when you take a step, you're going to land on the outside of your foot a little bit. This is supination. You must pronate, which means roll slightly to the inside of your foot. Your arch will drop. Okay, at some point, arch dropping was made to be this really bad thing. Anyone whose arch dropped, it was just terrible. It has to, because you need to have your arch drop so you can roll onto your big toe and actually drive off into your next step. Okay, that's your pronation and supination. And in the old model, all of a sudden, over-pronation became a bad thing. But nobody told us how much pronation is too much pronation. I don't know. So how do we know you're an over-pronator? Because we don't have like this, hey, you should be in this little bucket. We just sort of looked and went like, well, your feet look kind of flat, right? You guys probably did it. People come in, they go for a walk, over-pronator, motion control, good job, move on. And I've seen that a lot. So, now, it's, you know, the stability shoe, the motion control shoe, not necessarily the worst thing in the world. It's still out there, we still need it, because if you're having problems where you're so flat and you're so overpronating that your knee is over torqued and things like that, we may want to control that a little bit. That's the role of a more motion controlled or stability shoe. The minimal shoe is going to allow you more pronation, allow your body to sort of do a little bit more, which is great. But if you're not strong enough and you're not mobile enough to make that happen, then that could lead to problems. And that's kind of where sort of the railing against minimal shoes came along, because people made these transitions so quickly and didn't know what their body had to do, and they've been in these other shoes for 25 years. All right, piece number 2, dorsiflexion, plantar flexion. Your ankle has to bend, right? You've got to land, and you've got to push off. Now, I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole of the 4-footers versus the 4-foot strike versus the heel strikers. This is an argument that's starting to rage, and I don't really know, and I've seen studies that show that barefoot runners are landing 4-foot, and I've seen studies that show barefoot runners are landing rear foot, and that there's no answer here. What I've learned is that you have to land with a little bit, and you want to land with a little bit of plantar flexion. So this is my foot, this is plantar flexion, that's dorsiflexion, right? Okay? You want to land a little bit in this position because your Achilles tendon is this massive spring. You actually want to load it and let it, as it loads into dorsiflexion, kind of push you off. So as I stride, I land, I push, and then I come off. So if you have great range of motion at your ankle and your calves are really, really, really strong, you can do this in any shoe. And the more minimal the shoe, the more you're going to get your body to do that. If you're really stiff through your heel cords, your Achilles tendons, because being in a 12mm drop shoe for 20 years has essentially had you walking around in a slightly shortened position. Making a jump to something that's significantly lower drop is going to cause Achilles tendonitis. And that's a problem too. So with the higher shoe, with the higher drop, it'll allow you to sort of roll. It gives you that rocker bottom. It does a little bit for you. So we want to find that happy medium of how much flexibility you have, how much strength you have. The first time that I ran, quote unquote minimal, my calves hurt for 2 weeks. And that was a mind blow for me. I went, well, what have my calves been doing? You know, I do, where have they been? Well, I was in a 12-mil drop shoe. My calves were in Cabo, sipping margarita, right? And they're like, all of a sudden I was like, hey guys, we're gonna do 2,000 calf raises over the next 5 miles. And they were like screaming. So that's an overdo it. You don't want to do that. But so we want to find that happy medium, and we can actually increase our power because we use that Achilles tendon. That Achilles tendon is supposed to stretch. And the last piece of the puzzle is our big toe. Okay, your big toe is the thumb of your foot. 80 to 85% of your power comes from your big toe. If you're not really mobile and really stable there, okay, you're not going to be able to push off. This is a problem in multiple ways. So again, if you're in a higher drop shoe that's more stable, you don't need as much big toe because you're just going to roll through and come off and go on your way. If you're in a lower drop and you're going to use that Achilles tendon, you're going to need to push because that big toe gets stretched out and it drives you forward. And the other problem is picking a shoe, and this is huge for coming to a place like this and buying your shoes here. Is you have to be fit right, because a shoe has a flex point. So if you went out and bought the shiniest looking new shoe because it just looked cool, but they didn't have your size, and you're like, oh, I'll size up, I'll size down. You've changed the flex point, you've changed the mechanics of your feet, and this is going to cause you problems. So we need to make sure that we're sized correctly. All right. So we got all that. Any questions so far? Everybody all right? Making sense-ish? Okay, I haven't put anyone to sleep yet? No? Good. Good. Maybe you guys ready to get out there? Freeze your butts off. All right, so let's get to my handout. I put this together relatively quickly, but because we're sort of believing that minimal is better, I made a minimal handout at least. That's a terrible joke. All right, I want to look at a couple of, so we want to test these things. So now we understand what our foot's supposed to do. Does yours do it, is the big question, okay? Test number one is really simple. And we want to do all these tests barefoot. You're welcome to join me, or I can kind of demonstrate them. What I will be doing is I am videotaping, so I'm going to post to my website. I'll give you all the address. You can go back and check it out. I'll post this whole thing, and then on top of that, I'm going to try to post some small, like 30-second clips, so you can just look at each stretch or each exercise when you go back, because I know you guys are going to go for your run, go next door for ice cream or whatever happens afterwards. Oh, that's next week? I was concerned for the ice cream today. Today is not a
Next week,
post-run ice
it'll be
cream
like
day.
30 degrees.
Yeah,
You can't go today, but next week I think we get it.
yeah, the warm beer. I was thinking, I was like, ice cream? I'm thinking more like hot cocoa coffee? Yeah.
That's you.
So, all right, so test number one is simple. We're looking to decide, to figure out how much control we have in our foot, okay? It's a single leg stance test. So you take your shoes off, you stand on one leg, okay? We want to do awesome at this. Now, the other parts of the puzzle is you're going to get a little bit of wobble, but it's a fault if your big toe comes up off the ground. So if you're still here, but you start rolling to the outside, this is a fault. We want to be able to do this for a minimum of 30 seconds. I go to 60 seconds, okay? Get really good at that. Piece two is to go with your eyes closed. This is the game changer, okay? Right, there he goes. So I want 30 to 60 seconds, eyes closed. Yeah, that's it, a little teamwork.
There we go.
All day.
Oh,
And you're going to see your sprained ankle is going to be brutal for this.
Yeah.
I've got someone perfect. So that's going to be a huge just strengthener. And your foot intrinsics, your flexor, you're going to feel your ankles start to fatigue over that amount of time. The better you get at this, the more control you have of your foot. Okay? So that's test number one, and it's really simple. Do the test, pass or fail. If you fail, practice the test until you pass. Okay? Nothing
What did you
crazy.
say about your toes again?
Your big toe you want it on the floor the whole time. So you're rolling constantly the outside of your foot. That isn't good foot control, because when you're running, you want to come through and drive off that big toe. You can't drive out here, right? So that big toe needs to always be driving into the ground, and it's also part of the arch creator. So your arch is sort of more stable, okay? All right, number two is going to be a rear foot, forefoot control / calf exercise, okay? Like I said, when I did my first minimal run, I didn't progress enough and crushed my calves. So if you're in a higher drop shoe, your calves are doing less work, okay? If your foot's not stable and you're in a minimal shoe, you're not having, and you're pronating and supinating, your foot's not working properly. So you need to be able to come up onto single leg calf raise, so you guys can kind of help each other out, because you're allowed to use a little bit of stability. You want to get full range of motion at the calf, all the way up onto your toe, okay? And you want the front, so your rear foot, right? The back half of your foot and the front foot, the forefoot, the front half of your foot need to come up and down symmetrically. So we won't want to see wobble on the way up and down, okay? And I would bet my sprained ankle friend over there, you're going to see a ton of wobble on the way down if you're on your other.
Well, we can
I
use
think I'll
some of
take
that.
it easy on that.
A little balance is allowed. And you want to be able to do a minimum
You're
of,
good. You don't wobble.
You're
you're
wobbling.
really good at
You're
that.
not wobbling, you're wobbling.
And you want to be, and full range of motion is key, right? So you need to be all the way up, okay? Not just, we don't want just this.
Upper body, not my ankle.
Yeah, 20 is brutal. Okay, so again, same deal. Pass or fail. If you fail, work until you pass.
No running if you fail. Fail, we're not going out. Done.
Disqualified.
So the goal is 20. All right. Test 3 is more passive. So we're going to be seated. So here's the statistics on this. Full dorsiflexion, right? Flexion at the ankle. So essentially having full Achilles tendon and calf. Essentially your soleus. Getting a little technical, but you have two calf muscles, your gastroc and your soleus. The soleus is the one that acts when the knee is slightly bent. Okay? if it's tight, you're gonna have a problem. So fully Achilles tendon, soleus length is 30 degrees. So we're gonna just kind of scoot ourselves way forward. And I had a backpack. So just for fun, so you want to scoot way forward and bend that knee over the front of that toe until you've created a 30-degree angle at your ankle with your heel on the ground. You're not allowed to lift your heel. And most of you, because you run a lot, are going to be really tight there. So just to give you an idea, okay, go ahead, flex forward. Nope, just one is fine. Okay? That's 90 degrees. And flex as far as you can. And this would be 120 is here. So you want to be not bad. Very good. Right about there. Okay? So that gives you an idea. That's a 30-degree angle. That's what we're looking for. Okay, it's a lot of flexion. Okay, and so if you've been in the traditional running shoe and you're in a 12mm drop or a 9mm drop and you're in essentially a high heel all the time, your Achilles tendon hasn't had to do that work, right? Then Vibram came out and said, by the 5 finger, don't worry, it's the answer. And all of a sudden, you needed 30 degrees and you had like 20 or 15, and then you had Achilles tendonitis. And we said, well, those shoes are garbage. This minimal thing is bullcrap. Well, not necessarily. They just didn't tell you you need to spend at least 12 weeks stretching your calves before you did this.
I will say,
Yes.
we tried.
Right. Oh, I believe it. I believe it. I'm not blaming anyone. But look,
We tried.
I read. Look, we read Born to Run, and we just went like, Shh, that's it. Throw it all out. Burn the shoes. Right? It was like burn the motion controlled shoes. Get minimal, and there was just this no transition phase. So everything kind of finds itself back to the middle. So now, while you're in that really forward flex position, here's where it gets real fun. You need to grab on your big toe, and you need to pull that sucker 30 degrees up off the floor. And that baby's going to be stiff as hell, right? My plantar fasciitis friends,
Keeping
my
the heels on the
Achilles
ground.
people, okay? Super stiff there.
I love this right now.
All right.
Sean's like, I can take time.
Okay, so how do we fix this?
Yeah. Oh, I tried to know that I'm flexible at all.
Tyler, you're gonna have to stand up for this one.
I very well bet that most of you are stiff.
I would tell you, running with you up front a lot, you are so heavy, and probably just working on some of your flexibility, you probably come down a lot softer.
Right. So, all right. So your sort of two pieces of the puzzle to stretch these out. Okay. We want to do a soleus stretch. I had a little towel. I don't know where it went.
Yeah.
But,
It's pretty vicious.
all right. Very important. Most of us do our calf stretch, which we call a basic runner stretch, right? That is my towel. Great. And we go into kind of this position, right? Stretch your calf. But the problem is we're missing getting into the Achilles tendon. We need to bend the knee, okay? And I post it with a little towel underneath my big toe so that I can keep my arch. Because a lot of us are going to stretch it slightly externally rotated because we've made that adaptation for other reasons, and we're kind of getting into this position. So if you block your big toe with a towel, and then bend the knee and just lean into it, you should really feel a very low stretch in your ankle. Okay? I hold stretches for 2 minutes. It's a really long time.
That's so long.
It's a long time. Okay? I'm not into 10 seconds. I'm not into 30 seconds. Because we really need to stretch these things out, and they take a long time. Yes?
Rate of uncomfortableness in that 2 minutes. Just so people.
Oh, okay. So if you're rating a stretch 0 to 10, 0 is I'm doing nothing, 10 is the most painful experience of your life. Stretching is 5. Now across 2 minutes, 5 is going to become 3 or 2, and then we increase to get back to 5. That's why I hold it for a long period of time. We've got to get your central nervous system to kind of get out of the way and let us stretch further. Because it feels stretch and it goes like, okay, contract, keep everything tight. So, yeah, you shouldn't be like sweating, gritting your teeth, like you should be able to kind of like be there. I set my iPhone for 2 minutes, then I start checking Facebook, and I'm leaning